I'm Mia, just your average 30-something woman living in a world full of expectations and dreams. I've always been a bit of a romantic, the type who believes in love stories that make you cry and swoon. My friends often joke that I have a heart full of fairy tales, but it's hard to ignore the truth that fairy tales don't always end the way we expect. As I stood in front of a crowd that meant everything to me, my heart racing and my palms sweating, I was about to discover just how true that was. It was my wedding day, the day I had dreamed about since I was a little girl, and I was ready to say I do to the man who, to me, was nothing short of perfect. But just moments into my vows, a sound broke through the air, a laugh that cut through the sweetness of the ceremony like a knife. My sister Jenna was the culprit, her laughter ringing out as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. I froze mid-sentence, my heart skipping a beat. I had always thought Jenna was my biggest supporter, but in that moment, her laughter felt like a betrayal, a dark cloud hovering over a sunny day. She leaned over to her friend and, with a smirk that could only be described as devilish, said, "He'll leave you in a month." The words hung in the air, heavy and mocking, and I felt the blood drain from my face. I wanted to scream, to tell her to shut up, to put a stop to the laughter that was making my perfect moment crumble into dust. Instead, I stood there frozen, my eyes darting among the guests, searching for someone, anyone, who could make sense of what was happening. What would you have done in my place? Let me know below. Looking back, I realized that my wedding day was the culmination of years of love and laughter, but also of doubt and fear. The truth is, my relationship with Jenna had always been complicated. We were never the typical sisters who shared clothes or secrets. Instead, we were more like two planets orbiting the same sun, occasionally colliding with each other in moments of tension. As kids, we would bicker over the smallest things, who got the last cookie or who could use the TV remote first. But as we grew older, those small squabbles morphed into deeper disagreements about life choices, career paths, and of course, love. Jenna had always been skeptical of my romantic ideals. While I was busy daydreaming about finding the one, she was more pragmatic, the realist to my dreamer. I remember countless late-night conversations filled with her warnings about the pitfalls of love, how most relationships were destined to fail, and how marrying young was a recipe for disaster. I often brushed her off, believing that my love story would be different, that my relationship with Ben was special. He was kind, funny, and treated me like I was the only person in the room. Yet, somewhere deep down, Jenna's voice lingered, whispering doubts that I tried to ignore. As I resumed my vows, I could see the smirk still plastered on her face, a mix of amusement and something darker that I couldn't quite place. I tried to push her words out of my mind, focusing on Ben's eyes, filled with love and hope. But the laughter echoed in my ears, a reminder that not everyone saw my happiness the same way I did. I pressed on, trying to convey my love and commitment, but my voice wavered. The moment felt tainted, the laughter shadowing the pure joy I had wanted to radiate. In hindsight, I should have known that Jenna's words would not be the only surprise of the day. Just as I finished reciting the last of my vows, I heard a commotion at the back of the venue. My heart raced again, this time not from the weight of my sister's laughter, but from the sight of a familiar face pushing through the crowd. My ex-boyfriend, Alex, striding in with a microphone in hand. The entire room fell silent, all eyes turning towards him as he made his way toward the altar. What was he doing here? My mind was racing. I thought I had closed that chapter of my life for good. The last thing I wanted was for my wedding to be interrupted by the ghost of a past relationship, especially after Jenna's cruel joke. But there he was, with a smirk that mirrored Jenna's, a hint of mischief dancing in his eyes. It felt like the universe was conspiring to ruin my day, and I was caught in the middle of it all. Alex took center stage, the microphone poised in front of him as he cleared his throat. "Hey everyone, sorry to crash the party, but I have something to say," he announced, his voice echoing through the venue. I could hardly breathe, my heart racing as confusion and anger boiled inside me. I could feel Jenna's eyes on me, the smirk fading, replaced by an expression of surprise. What was he going to say? And why now? At that moment, standing there in my wedding dress with my sister's laughter still ringing in my ears and my ex-boyfriend about to speak, I realized that my perfect day was unraveling before my very eyes. And as much as I wanted to tell him to leave, I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a whirlwind I never saw coming. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest, the world around me fading into a blur. All eyes were on Alex, and I felt the weight of every gaze, every whisper. I had thought I was stepping into a fairy tale, but here was the villain from my past, ready to deliver a plot twist I hadn't anticipated. What could he possibly want? I thought, anger and confusion swirling inside me. I wanted to scream for him to leave, to let this day be about the love I had with Liam. But there was a part of me that was equally curious about what he had to say. Yeah, I know this is a bit unconventional, Alex continued, the corners of his mouth turning up slightly as he scanned the crowd. But I couldn't just let her marry this guy without saying my piece. I felt a chill run down my spine, and my palms began to sweat. How could he be so brazen? Liam, standing beside me, appeared tense, his jaw tightening as he shot me a glance filled with concern. I tried to muster a reassuring smile, but the way Alex was staring at me made it impossible to focus. My mind raced back to the years we'd spent together, the laughter, the love, and ultimately, the heartbreak. I had thought those memories were buried, but now they were rising to the surface, clawing at my composure. Look, I know I messed up, Alex continued, his tone shifting to something more vulnerable. But I've spent the past year realizing how much I took for granted when we were together. I know this isn't the right time, but I had to come and say that I still care about you. His words hung in the air like a thick fog, and I felt the heat creeping into my cheeks. I wanted to scream back at him that it was too late, that he had his chance and he blew it. But instead, I just stood there, paralyzed by the shock of it all. The guests were whispering amongst themselves, and I could see Jenna in the corner of my eye, a look of glee plastered on her face. She loved chaos, and it seemed she was reveling in the unfolding drama. I wanted to turn to her, to demand why she thought it was okay to laugh during my vows, but there was no time. I had to focus on the man in front of me. Do you really think you can just come back into my life after everything? I finally found my voice, though it trembled with emotion. You hurt me, Alex. You walked away without a second thought, and now you think you can just waltz in here and make a scene? I know, he replied, raising his hands in a placating gesture. I'm not trying to disrupt your wedding, I'm just trying to be honest. I should have fought for you. I should have been better. I don't expect you to take me back, but I needed you to know that I see what I lost. I felt the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. This was supposed to be my day, and here he was, dragging up all the feelings I had worked so hard to suppress. How could he be so selfish? This isn't about you, I snapped, my voice rising. This is my wedding day, a day that should be filled with love and joy, not old regrets. Liam stepped closer, his presence grounding me. You need to leave, Alex, he said firmly, his voice steady. You're not welcome here. This is a celebration, and you're ruining it. But Alex didn't budge. Instead, he took a step forward, his eyes locked onto mine. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I just want you to think about whether you really want to marry him. My heart sank. I had never imagined that I would be faced with this moment, questioning everything as I stood in a wedding dress meant for my future. I had chosen Liam, a man who loved me deeply and treated me with respect. Why was I even considering Alex's words? The audience was hushed, the tension palpable. I could feel their eyes boring into me, waiting for my next move. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I've made my choice, I said firmly, feeling a wave of resolve wash over me. Liam is the man I want to be with, and I won't let you take that away from me. For a brief moment, a flicker of something passed over Alex's face. Regret, perhaps? But it vanished just as quickly. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. No, I'm not, I replied, my voice stronger this time. You had your chance, and you blew it. I deserve someone who will fight for me, not someone who walks away. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. I could see Liam relaxing slightly, a hint of pride in his eyes. And then, Alex surprised me. He took a step back, holding the microphone loosely, his expression shifting to one of defeat. I'm sorry for interrupting, he said quietly. I just had to try. With that, he turned and walked away, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the silence. A sigh of relief washed over me, but I knew this wasn't over. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and I could feel them taking root. Turning back to Liam, I could see the concern etched in his features. Are you okay? He asked gently, reaching for my hand. I will be, I said, forcing a smile. But as I looked around at our guests, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a series of events that would test the very foundation of my relationship. I knew I had to move forward and focus on what was truly important. the love I had for Liam. But could I really shake off what Alex had just stirred up? As we resumed our vows, I tried to push the chaos of that moment out of my mind. But it lingered, hovering like a dark cloud, waiting for the right moment to strike again. I couldn't help but wonder if this was merely the first chapter of a much larger story, one that would force me to confront not just my past, but the future I thought I had secured. As we stood there, hands intertwined, I focused on Liam's eyes, those deep pools of warmth and love that had always made me feel grounded. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I attempted to drown out the laughter and the taunts that still echoed in my mind. I promise to love you, to support you, and to stand by you, I said, my voice wavering slightly. Through every twist and turn, I'll be your partner. Liam smiled at me, that beautiful smile that made everything feel right in the world. And I promise to cherish you, to respect you, and to build a life together filled with laughter and adventure. His words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, pushing aside the chill that Alex's presence had instilled. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if we were in a bubble, isolated from everything that threatened to invade our perfect day. But reality has a way of sneaking back in, doesn't it? Just as we exchanged rings, a low murmur began to ripple through the crowd. I glanced over to see Alex, standing at the back with that smug grin plastered across his face, holding a microphone as if he were about to give a speech. My heart dropped. My fingers tightened around Liam's, and I could see the confusion etched across his features as he followed my gaze. Sorry to interrupt. Alex's voice boomed, filled with a confidence that made my skin crawl. But I think this is a moment we all need to hear. I could hardly breathe. I didn't want to believe this was happening. I wanted to scream, to run to him and demand he leave us alone. But instead, I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest, as Alex took a step forward, clearly relishing the attention. I know this might be a little unconventional, he continued, but I have a story to share. You see, I was with Emily long before Liam came into the picture. The crowd shifted, eyes darting between us, and I felt the heat of embarrassment creeping up my neck. And I think it's important for everyone to know just how great she really is, or isn't. Stop it, Alex! I finally managed to shout, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. This is not your moment. Liam squeezed my hand tighter, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. Do you know him? He whispered, and I could hear the disbelief in his voice. Yes, but not like this, I swear. He's just trying to ruin everything, I cried. My eyes locked on Alex, willing him to back down. But you all should hear what I have to say. Alex pressed on, undeterred. It's all about love and loyalty, after all. And who better to speak on that than someone who was once in love with the bride? My heart raced as I scanned the crowd. Some faces looked intrigued, while others wore expressions of discomfort. I wanted to disappear. How had it come to this? Look, I said, my voice rising again. This day isn't about you. It's about me and Liam. Leave us alone. Is that so? Alex shot back, his smirk never fading. Then why did you hide my existence from him? You think he deserves to know the truth? Truth? I spat, feeling the anger boiling inside me. What truth? You want to talk about our past? You know how it ended. You left, Alex. You chose your career over us. Don't act like you're the victim here. Victim? He laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. Oh, Emily, this is about more than just us. It's about your ability to commit. You're marrying Liam without fully letting go of your past. How do you think that will play out? Enough! Liam's voice cut through the chaos, commanding attention. This is not your day. You need to leave. For a moment, I thought Alex might back down, but instead he lifted the microphone again, his expression turning serious. I'm just trying to save her, man. Emily deserves the truth, and if you're as good as you think you are, you'll be able to handle it. Handle what? Liam asked, his tone growing darker. What are you implying? The tension in the air was thick enough to slice with a knife. I felt the eyes of our guests boring into us, and the weight of their judgment felt unbearable. You're a good guy, Liam, Alex said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. But good guys get left behind. Just ask Emily's sister. I gasped, turning my head sharply. My sister. What did Alex know? What had she said? You don't get to drag her into this, I shouted, my heart racing again. Why not? He shrugged. She laughed during your vows. What does that say about how she feels? If she can't support you, why should anyone else? My stomach churned. Did everyone really feel this way? Had my sister really laughed? I could feel the walls closing in, and in that moment, I realized I was about to lose everything. The wedding I had dreamed of, the love I had fought for, and the trust I thought I had built. It was all hanging by a thread. In that moment of chaos, I looked at Liam. His brow was furrowed, confusion clouding his usually calm demeanor. I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes, and I knew I had to act fast. "Liam," I said softly, my voice breaking, "please trust me. You know who I am. I love you, and I need you to believe that." But as I spoke, I could feel the weight of Alex's words pressing down on us, like a storm threatening to break. "He'll leave you in a month." I could almost hear my sister's voice echoing in the back of my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she might be right. What if I wasn't enough? What if this was just the beginning of a long and painful unraveling? And in that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, the foundation of my love trembling as uncertainty seeped in. What was I going to do? How could I fix this? I didn't just want to survive this moment. I wanted to thrive in my relationship, and I could feel the fear creeping in, whispering doubts that I struggled to silence. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to look away from the chaos and back to the man I loved. "Liam," I said again, more firmly this time, "I need you to focus on us, not on what anyone else thinks." I could see his shoulders relax just a little, his eyes softening as he searched my face for reassurance. But even as I tried to ground him, my sister's laughter echoed in my ears, and the weight of her skepticism hung heavy in the air. I could feel the eyes of our guests, the murmurs of confusion rippling through the crowd, but I refused to let that sway me. This was our moment, our vows, and I wasn't about to let anyone, not even my sister, steal that away from us. Suddenly, I felt a surge of defiance. I wasn't just going to stand there and let Alex's words dictate how this day would go. I had fought too hard for this love, too hard to let anyone, especially my sister, diminish its worth. I took Liam's hands in mine, squeezing them tightly. "I believe in you. I believe in us," I said, my voice steady now, rising above the murmurs. "We've built something beautiful together, and I refuse to let anyone tear it down." Liam's expression shifted, a flicker of understanding igniting behind his eyes. He nodded slowly, and I could see the strength returning to him as he began to mirror my conviction. "You're right," he said, his voice low but resolute. "This is our day. We'll do this together." The music resumed softly in the background, a gentle reminder of the love that had brought us here. I turned back to face our guests, summoning a smile that I hoped would convey my determination. I could see familiar faces, friends and family who had come to support us, and I knew that they were rooting for our love, not against it. "Thank you all for being here today," I said, my voice now confident and clear. "This is a celebration of love and commitment, and I promise you, nothing will overshadow that." I glanced at Alex, who had fallen silent, a look of surprise on her face. For a moment, I felt a flicker of triumph. But just as I was beginning to feel like I might take control of the narrative, the doors to the venue swung open with a sudden force that caught everyone's attention. I turned, my heart racing at the unexpected interruption. There stood Alex's boyfriend, Mark, with a mic in hand, looking slightly out of breath. I could feel the collective gasp from the crowd, my heart pounding as I tried to process what was happening. "I know this might seem a bit unconventional," he said, his eyes darting around the room, "but I think I have something important to say." I felt a rush of confusion. What was he doing here? Did Alex ask him to come? Was this some kind of ploy? My mind raced as I exchanged glances with Liam, who looked just as bewildered as I felt. Mark cleared his throat, gripping the mic a little tighter. "I know I'm not the one getting married today, but I need to speak on behalf of someone who is." He paused, his gaze settling on me. "Jessica, you are an incredible person. I've seen how much Liam means to you, and I just want to say, you deserve to have your day without any negativity." The room fell silent, and I could feel my heart swell with emotion. It was unexpected, but Mark's words were genuine, and I was grateful for his support. "You and Liam have something special, something that goes beyond what others might say or think. Don't let anyone dim that light." A ripple of applause broke out, and I could see my family members nodding in agreement. I locked eyes with Liam, and in that moment it felt like we were the only two people in the room. His smile returned, brighter than before, and I could see the confidence building back up in him. Then, Mark continued, "I know Alex's family, and she loves you both, but sometimes love can come out in unexpected ways. Jess, Don't let anyone, even family, define your happiness. You have the power to shape your own story. With that, he stepped back, handing the mic back to the event coordinator, who stood frozen in shock, unsure of how to proceed. The crowd erupted into applause again, and I could feel the tension beginning to dissipate. It was a reminder that love has many forms, and sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places. I turned back to Liam, feeling a newfound resolve. "Let's do this," I whispered, and he nodded, his confidence restored. As we resumed our vows, I looked out into the sea of faces filled with love and support. This was our moment, and I was determined to embrace it fully. I could feel the warmth of Liam's hand in mine, grounding me, reminding me of why we were here. In that moment, I let go of my fears, the whispers of doubt fading into the background. It was time to focus on what truly mattered: our love, our commitment, and the life we were about to build together. And as I spoke my vows, I felt lighter, freer, ready to step into the future with Liam by my side, no matter what challenges might come our way. As I spoke my vows, I felt lighter, freer, ready to step into the future with Liam by my side, no matter what challenges might come our way. Each word flowed from my heart, resonating not just with my love for him, but also with the strength I had discovered in that unexpected moment. I could see the warmth in his eyes, the way he leaned in closer, hanging on every promise I made. It felt like we were in our own little world, separate from the laughter and whispers surrounding us. "I promise to support you, to cherish you, and to grow with you," I said, feeling the weight of each commitment settle over us. "I will celebrate your victories, stand by you through your struggles, and always be your biggest fan." Liam's expression softened, and I could tell he was as moved as I was. Our love was not a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated, but it was real. As Liam began to speak his vows, I found myself soaking in every word. "I vow to be your partner in all things," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "I promise to listen and to respect you, to help you chase your dreams, and to make you laugh when things get tough." I couldn't help but smile. He knew me so well, and I could feel the sincerity behind every promise he made. But just as the ceremony hit its peak, just as I was lost in the beauty of our union, the air shifted. A loud laugh echoed through the venue, breaking the intimate bubble we had created. My sister, Rachel, was leaning against a column, arms crossed, a smirk plastered across her face. "Seriously? You really think this is going to last?" she shouted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The laughter from our guests died down, and a collective gasp filled the room. My heart sank. I wanted to hide. I wanted to scream. Rachel had always been the one to challenge me, but this was our wedding. It wasn't the time or place. "Rachel," I called out, my voice trembling. "What are you doing?" But she continued, undeterred. "Come on, everyone knows he'll leave you in a month. Look at him." She pointed at Liam, who was visibly taken aback. My stomach twisted at the sight of his confusion mixed with hurt. The laughter that had been so joyous just moments before morphed into an uncomfortable silence. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, my hands trembling in Liam's grip. "That's not true," I shouted, my voice breaking. "You don't know anything about us." Rachel shrugged, her expression unfazed. "I know you've always been too naive to see the truth. Just wait. It's only a matter of time." I looked around at the guests, searching for support, but I saw mixed expressions. Some were shocked, some were amused, but most were just as uncomfortable as I was. I wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. The pain from her words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, and I could feel tears brimming in my eyes. Liam squeezed my hand tighter, grounding me. "We don't need to listen to this," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let's just finish our vows. We're stronger than her negativity." With a deep breath, I nodded. I was determined not to let Rachel steal this moment from us. "You're right," I said, forcing a smile to mask my hurt. "Let's keep going." As we resumed our vows, I noticed the shift in the room. Some guests were whispering to each other, their brows furrowed with concern, while others seemed to be on the verge of laughter, caught in the absurdity of the situation. I clung to Liam's hand, focusing on him and our love, letting the rest of the world fade away. After our vows, I thought we'd finally made it to the end, that we could breathe again. But no sooner had we exchanged rings than Rachel made another attempt to derail us. "I can't believe you're taking this seriously. You're just setting yourself up for failure." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how hurtful her words were, how they didn't reflect the reality of our relationship. But deep down, I knew that engaging with her wouldn't change anything. Instead, I took a moment, drawing from the strength I had felt during the vows. "Rachel," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "This isn't about you or your opinions. This is about love and commitment. You might not understand it, and that's okay. But this is our day, and I won't let you ruin it." The room fell silent, and for a moment, I felt like a weight had been lifted. There was something empowering about standing up for myself, for my love. As Rachel opened her mouth to respond, Liam stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We love each other, and that's what matters. I wish you could support us instead of tearing us down." Rachel's expression shifted, anger flashing in her eyes. "You don't know what you're getting into," she shot back. "You'll regret this." But before I could respond, the event coordinator stepped in, trying to regain control. "Let's all take a moment to celebrate this union," she called out, clapping her hands. Slowly, the crowd began to join in, cheering and clapping, as if to drown out the negativity in the air. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, and I turned to Liam, who looked both relieved and bewildered. "I can't believe she did that," he said softly, concern etched on his face. "It's not over yet," I replied, glancing back at Rachel, who was still glaring at us. But I was determined not to let her ruin our day. I took Liam's hand again and led him away from the crowd, to a quieter corner of the venue. "Are you okay?" I asked, searching his eyes for reassurance. "I will be," he said, drawing me closer, "as long as I have you." And in that moment, I realized that no matter what storms we faced, as long as we stood together, we could weather anything. I took a deep breath, letting the warmth of Liam's presence ground me amidst the chaos swirling around us. I had envisioned this day as a fairy tale, filled with perfect moments and joyous laughter, not as a battleground where my sister's disdain cast shadows over our love. But as I stood there, feeling the pulse of my heart against his, I knew that I had to shake off the negativity and focus on what truly mattered. "Let's get back," I said, forcing a smile. "I want to make some memories today, not dwell on the past." He nodded, and together, we stepped back into the thrumming energy of our wedding. The air was electric, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, but my stomach churned as I caught sight of Rachel again. She was perched at a table, a glass of wine in hand, her expression unreadable. I couldn't help but wonder what she was thinking, if she was still plotting her next move. As we rejoined our friends and family, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had planned this day meticulously, from the flowers to the music, and I wasn't about to let anyone steal that from us. The ceremony resumed with laughter, lighthearted speeches, and a few tearful moments that reminded me of the love surrounding us. But deep inside, the tension was still simmering. I could feel it in the way my mother kept glancing nervously at Rachel, as if she were waiting for the next outburst. I tried to focus on the sweet words of our officiant, who spoke about love, commitment, and partnership, but my mind kept drifting back to my sister. "Can you believe it?" I whispered to Liam during a brief lull. "This is supposed to be our day, and yet she's making it all about her." "I know," he said, shaking his head. "But let's not let her steal our joy. We have so much to look forward to." He was right, of course. We had our whole lives ahead of us, filled with dreams and adventures waiting to unfold. I took his hand tightly, letting the warmth of his touch give me strength. The moment felt monumental, as if it were just the two of us against the world. As we moved into the reception, the clamor of clinking silverware and cheerful chatter swirled around us. I felt giddy, ready to dive into the festivities. The music pumped through the air, and I could see people hitting the dance floor, laughter erupting like fireworks. It felt like I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one that I had long dreamed of. We shared our first dance under a canopy of twinkling lights, the warmth of Liam's embrace wrapping around me like a protective bubble. I looked into his eyes, and for a moment the world faded away. It was just us, lost in our own universe. But then, like an unwelcome gust of wind, I saw Rachel inching her way toward the dance floor. My heart sank. She had a mischievous glint in her eyes, and I braced myself for another round of her antics. "Can we talk?" she said, her voice dripping with sweetness that felt far too sugary for my taste. "Not now, Rachel," I replied, trying to keep my tone even. "Can't you see I'm busy?" "Oh, I can see you're busy, all right," she countered, a smirk creeping onto her lips. "But I think we need to have a little sisterly chat." I wanted to scream, to tell her that I didn't have time for her drama, but I knew that would only escalate the situation. Instead, I turned back to Liam, who was watching the exchange with concern. "Let's just enjoy the moment," he whispered, pulling me closer. But Rachel wasn't done. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You really think he'll stick around? You should know better. Men like him don't stay." The air around us felt charged, and I took a deep breath, steadying myself. It was like she had a magic ability to pull me back into insecurities I thought I had outgrown. I wanted to tell her that Liam was different, that he loved me for me, but I couldn't find the words. "Rachel, please," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "This is my wedding day. Can we just focus on celebrating?" She stepped back, a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. All right. But don't say I didn't warn you." With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me feeling a mix of anger and frustration. I watched her retreat, wondering if this would ever end. I turned back to Liam, who enveloped me in a warm hug, his strength my refuge. "Forget about her," he said softly. "Let's make this a day to remember." I nodded, but the weight of Rachel's words hung heavy in the air. I wanted to shake it off, to believe in the love we shared, but doubts began creeping in like shadows. As the night wore on, I tried to focus on the fun, the laughter, and the love surrounding us. People danced, shared stories, and toasted to our future. I let myself get swept up in the joy, but every time I saw Rachel across the room, a little knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. It felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance my happiness against the fear of impending doom. I knew I had to let go of those worries, but how could I when they were so deeply rooted in my heart? I promised myself that I wouldn't let her ruin this. I wouldn't let her negativity seep into our joy. But the question lingered. How long could I hold on to that resolve? The music pulsed around us, a backdrop to the laughter and chatter that filled the room. I could see friends lost in the rhythm, their bodies moving freely, as if unencumbered by any troubles. I wanted to join them, to let loose and forget about everything. But Rachel's presence was a persistent reminder of the chaos lurking just beneath the surface. Each time I caught a glimpse of her, it was like a cold wave washing over me, threatening to pull me under. Liam squeezed my hand, drawing my attention back to him. "Let's dance," he said, a smile breaking across his face, lighting up his eyes. I wanted to. I really did. But the knot in my stomach was tight, and my feet felt rooted to the floor. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. "Yeah, just thinking." I brushed it off, forcing a smile. "Thinking too much," he teased, tilting his head slightly. "Just for tonight, can we pretend that everything is perfect?" The warmth of his words washed over me, and I took a deep breath, letting his suggestion sink in. Could I really pretend? For a few hours, could I step away from the doubts that had become so familiar? "Okay," I finally said, and as we moved toward the dance floor, I felt a flicker of hope. The moment our bodies swayed together, I was lost in the music and the rhythm, wrapped up in the embrace of the man I loved. It felt like freedom, like the weight of the world had been lifted, until the moment I turned and caught Rachel's gaze again. She stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at her lips. That knot in my stomach tightened, pulling me back to reality. I tried to focus on Liam, but my mind was split. Did she really think she could just waltz back into my life and shake things up like this? "Are you really okay?" Liam asked again, pulling me back into the moment. "Yes," I insisted, forcing the smile back onto my face. "I'm great." "Really?" The music shifted to a slower tempo, and Liam pulled me closer, wrapping his arms around me as we swayed. I closed my eyes, trying to drown out the chaos in my mind, but the feeling of unease lingered, like a shadow refusing to leave. "Let's talk about our plans for next weekend," he said, breaking the silence. "I was thinking we could go hiking, just the two of us. What do you think?" Hiking sounded perfect. Just us in nature, away from all the drama. "I'd love that," I replied, my heart warming at the thought of being outdoors with him, free from distractions. Just us and the mountains. As we continued to dance, I started to feel more at ease. Liam's laughter, his playful banter, and the way he made me feel cherished were enough to momentarily silence my worries. But then, the music shifted again, and I spotted Rachel making her way toward us, her expression unreadable. "Hey, can I cut in?" she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I felt Liam tense beside me, and I quickly stepped back. "Rachel, can we not do this right now?" Why not? She challenged, her eyes glinting with mischief. Just because you're engaged doesn't mean you get to keep him all to yourself. The room seemed to shrink around me, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. I hated that she was forcing me into a confrontation. This isn't about you, I said firmly. Isn't it? She shot back. You're the one who is scared of me. I just want to dance. Her challenge hung in the air, and I could feel the weight of everyone's attention pressing down on me. What would they think? My heart raced as I looked at Liam. I wanted to scream, to push her away, to reclaim my moment, but instead I took a deep breath. Fine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Just one dance. Liam's eyes widened in surprise, but he didn't protest. I stepped aside, feeling both empowered and terrified as Rachel slipped in beside him. She moved in a way that suggested familiarity, and I felt a surge of jealousy rise within me. As they danced, I watched their movements, the way Rachel leaned in slightly, whispering something into Liam's ear. My heart sank deeper, and I turned away, forcing myself to look for familiar faces in the crowd. But it felt like all the joy had been stripped away, leaving only a hollow ache in my chest. I wanted to shout, "What would you do in my position?" But as I felt the weight of that question settle over me, I realized how complicated everything truly was. I didn't want to give Rachel the satisfaction of seeing me upset, yet here I was, caught in the crossfire of my emotions. Moments stretched into what felt like hours. But finally, Rachel stepped back, her triumphant smile only fueling the fire inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to reclaim my moment, to remind myself of who I was in this whirlwind. "Liam," I called, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "Can I have you back?" He looked at me, a hint of confusion in his eyes, but then he smiled and stepped away from Rachel. "Of course." As he took my hand, I felt a rush of relief. The warmth of his palm against mine grounded me, reminding me that I had the power to shape my own narrative. I wouldn't allow Rachel to rewrite our story, not now and not ever. But as I danced with Liam again, the question lingered in the back of my mind. How long could I hold on to this sense of control? And what would it take to finally silence Rachel's voice in my head? The music swelled around us, a sweet melody that felt like it was wrapping me in a protective cocoon. I focused on Liam, the way his eyes sparkled when he looked at me, and how he always found a way to make me feel cherished, even amidst chaos. I could feel the weight of Rachel's words pressing down on me, but I pushed them aside for the moment. I wanted to be present in this dance, in this fleeting moment of joy. As we swayed, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I wouldn't let Rachel's laughter haunt me. I wouldn't allow her skepticism to seep into my heart and poison my happiness. I looked up at Liam, who was completely engaged in the moment, his smile infectious. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, leaning in closer. My heart fluttered at his words, and for a moment it was just us against the world. But then, in the midst of our bliss, I caught a glimpse of Rachel on the sidelines, her arms crossed and her expression a mix of amusement and disdain. It was as if she was waiting for something, waiting for me to falter, to fail, to give her the satisfaction of proving her right. I felt anger bubbling up again, this time directed at her audacity to undermine my happiness in such a public way. The dance ended, and we stepped away from each other just as the next couple took the floor. I watched the swirling colors and joyful faces, but the laughter and chatter around me started to fade into a distant hum. I needed to confront Rachel. But how? What was the best way to address her without letting her get under my skin? "Let's get some air," I suggested to Liam, who nodded and led me outside. The evening air was cool against my flushed skin, and I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I shook my head, not wanting to burden him with my worries. "It's just, Rachel is being Rachel. You know how she can be." Liam frowned slightly. "Is she really bothering you? Because I can talk to her if you want." "No, please don't," I hurriedly replied. "That will only make things worse. I just need to figure this out on my own." He sighed, his brows knitting together. "I hate to see you upset. You deserve to enjoy today without any distractions." "I know, I'm trying," I said, forcing a smile. "It's just hard." "I believe in you," he said softly, and his faith in me was like a balm to my troubled spirit. For a moment, I let his encouragement wash over me, feeling stronger with every heartbeat. As we stood there, the soft glow of the stars above twinkling in the night sky, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. What did I want from Rachel? An apology? Recognition that her words were cruel and unfounded? It was frustrating to think that someone who should uplift me instead sought to tear me down. "Hey," I said, turning to Liam. "Do you ever feel like some people just don't want to see you happy?" He nodded, clearly understanding the weight of my question. "Absolutely. Some people thrive on negativity, and it's often rooted in their own insecurities." His words resonated with me, and I couldn't help but wonder about Rachel's motivations. Was she projecting her fears about love and commitment onto me? I couldn't deny that the thought had crossed my mind more than once. "I just wish she'd see how much I love you," I admitted. Liam took my hand again, intertwining his fingers with mine. "You don't need her validation. You have my love, and that's what matters. Focus on us." As we headed back inside, I felt a new sense of purpose. I was here to celebrate our love, and I wouldn't let Rachel's negativity derail me. I spotted her again, laughing with a group of guests, her demeanor completely at odds with the chaos she had caused earlier. I felt a surge of anger and decided right then that I needed to speak up, not just for myself but for anyone else who had ever felt belittled or dismissed. I approached her, my heart pounding, and without thinking I said, "Rachel, can we talk?" Her laughter faded, and she looked at me with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "What's up?" "I need you to know that your comments today really hurt me," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "This is my wedding day, and your words felt mean-spirited and uncalled for." "Come on, it was just a joke," she replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her tone. "It didn't feel like a joke to me," I countered, taking a deep breath. "I'm happy with Liam. He's good to me, and I wish you could see that instead of trying to tear us down." For a moment, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe it was guilt or recognition, but then the facade returned and she shrugged. "You'll see. Relationships are complicated." "I know that," I snapped, feeling my resolve strengthen. "But you don't have to be a part of that complication. I'm asking you to support me or at least keep your opinions to yourself." With that, I turned on my heel and walked away, my heart racing. I had said my piece, and as Liam caught up with me, I felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted. "What did she say?" he asked, concern lining his features. "Nothing I didn't expect," I replied, feeling proud of myself for standing up to her. "But I know I can handle this. I just have to keep focusing on us." And as we rejoined the party, I promised myself that I wouldn't let Rachel dictate the narrative of my life any longer. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, clinking glasses, and the comforting warmth of my friends surrounding me. Liam and I moved through the party like we were in our own little bubble, where the world outside faded into the background noise of joy and celebration. I could see the happiness in Liam's eyes. His smile, infectious and genuine, was all I needed to drown out the doubts Rachel had sown. As the night wore on, I found myself lost in conversation with friends I hadn't seen in ages. We shared memories, stories from our college days, and plans for the future. I felt a sense of camaraderie that was almost palpable. But in the back of my mind, there was a persistent echo of Rachel's words. "He'll leave you in a month." I tried to push it aside, reminding myself of the love and commitment Liam and I shared. Yet, the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. The party began to wind down, and I noticed a few guests preparing to leave. As I stood by the bar, chatting with a close friend, I caught a glimpse of Liam across the room, laughing with a group of our mutual friends. His joy was infectious, and I felt a smile stretch across my face just watching him. I was grateful for this moment, for the warmth of the people around me, and for Liam, who had become my anchor. Suddenly, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. It was a message from Rachel. "You know you can't just pretend everything is perfect. It'll come crashing down, and I won't be there to pick up the pieces." I rolled my eyes, irritation flaring inside me. Why did she insist on trying to rain on my parade? I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I had already chosen to stand firm. I typed back a simple, "Thanks for your concern, but I'm happy." I slipped my phone back into my pocket and decided to join Liam. As I made my way over, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I had to show Rachel that I wasn't just going to be a character in her narrative. I was the author of my own story, and it was a love story. "Hey you!" Liam called out, waving me over. His face lit up, and I couldn't help but be drawn to his energy. "I was just telling them about our first date. Remember that awkward moment when we couldn't find a parking spot?" I laughed, feeling my heart swell with affection. "How could I forget? You almost drove us into a tree trying to reverse." The group erupted into laughter, and I felt a warmth spread through me. In that moment, surrounded by friends and wrapped in Liam's embrace, I believed in our love. As the last few guests filtered out, I felt a mix of fatigue and contentment. I turned to Liam, who was collecting empty glasses. "Let's clean this up and get some rest," I suggested, linking my arm through his. He nodded, his eyes reflecting the same weariness I felt. Once the party was finally wrapped up, we sat on the couch, exhausted but happy. "Today was great," Liam said, leaning back and pulling me close. "I'm so glad we did this." "Me too," I replied, resting my head on his shoulder. But I can't shake off Rachel's comments. It's like I'm in a constant battle between her words and my heart. Liam sighed. "You know she's just projecting her own fears, right? I mean, we both know she's not exactly the poster child for healthy relationships." "I know," I said, feeling a mix of gratitude and frustration. "But it still stings. It's hard to ignore." "Then don't ignore it," he said softly. "Acknowledge it. Just don't let it dictate how you feel about us." His words struck a chord, and I sat up straight, looking at him. "You're right. I need to confront this. I can't let her negativity seep into our happiness." "Exactly," he said, his eyes warm and reassuring. "We're a team, remember? We can face anything together." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in our thoughts. The night had turned into early morning, and the world outside was still. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few weeks lift ever so slightly. Maybe, just maybe, I could start believing in our love again without Rachel's shadow looming over us. The next few days were a whirlwind. I went to work, and each time I saw Rachel, I felt a rush of determination to remain steadfast in my happiness. I started to see her not as a threat, but as a reminder of what I didn't want to become. I refused to let negativity dictate my life. I was ready to embrace my happiness, flaws, and all. One evening, as I was out running errands, I decided to stop by a local cafe. The familiar scent of roasted coffee beans filled the air as I walked in. I grabbed my favorite drink and settled at a corner table, taking a moment to appreciate the calm. Just as I took a sip, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, I have a surprise for you tonight. Can't wait to see you." Curiosity piqued, I quickly typed back, "What is it?" "Patience," he replied with a winking emoji. I couldn't help but smile at his playful banter. Whatever it was, I knew it would be special. As I left the cafe, I felt a spark of excitement for what was to come. Maybe this would be another step forward in proving that Rachel's words held no power over my story. I was ready for whatever Liam had planned, ready to embrace the next chapter of my life no matter what hurdles lay ahead. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the town, I made my way home, heart racing with anticipation. I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would be different, that Liam was about to unveil something that would solidify our bond even further. When I stepped through the front door, I was welcomed by the soft light of candles flickering throughout the living room. The ambiance was inviting, and my heart fluttered at the sight. "Liam?" I called out, excitement lacing my voice. He appeared from the kitchen, a playful smile spreading across his face. "Surprise!" he exclaimed, revealing a beautifully arranged charcuterie board, complete with an assortment of cheeses, fruits, and my favorite chocolates. "I thought we could have a little picnic inside tonight." "Wow, this looks amazing," I said, stepping closer to inspect the spread. It was thoughtful, and it meant so much to me that he took the time to create something special. Liam pulled out a couple of glasses and a bottle of sparkling cider. "I figured we'd toast to new beginnings," he said, as he poured the bubbly drink, the fizz rising like the excitement in my chest. We settled on the floor, surrounded by cushions, and started to nibble on the delicious spread. We talked and laughed, sharing stories about our childhoods, our dreams, and the little quirks that made us who we were. In that moment, I felt a sense of connection that I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was as if we were building something together, layer by layer, like the cheeses on the platter. After we finished eating, Liam leaned back against the couch, looking contemplative. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his tone shifting slightly. "Of course," I replied, curious about what was on his mind. He took a deep breath. "Do you ever think about your sister? About what she said during your vows?" The question hung in the air, heavy and poignant. I had tried to push Rachel's words to the back of my mind, to dismiss them as mere negativity, but hearing Liam bring it up made the memories flood back, uninvited and unwelcome. "I do," I admitted, feeling a lump form in my throat. It's hard not to. It's like a shadow that lingers, no matter how hard I try to shake it off. Liam nodded, his expression understanding. I think it's natural. The things people say can stick with us, even when we don't want them to. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. His words were a balm to my anxious heart. Thank you, Liam. That means a lot to me. I know I've been through a lot, and I can sometimes let those doubts creep in. He reached out and took my hand in his, the warmth of his grip grounding me. You're stronger than you realize, and you deserve happiness. We all have our baggage, but it doesn't define us. You're creating your own narrative now, and I'm here to support you in that journey. His sincerity washed over me like a comforting wave. I believed him. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. Our conversation drifted to lighter topics, and laughter filled the room as we shared funny anecdotes from our past. It was during these moments that I recognized how much I had longed for this connection, for someone to truly see me and appreciate me for who I was. As the evening wore on, I noticed Liam checking his watch occasionally. What's up? I asked, a hint of curiosity in my voice. Oh, just waiting for the right moment, he said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The right moment for what? He leaned in closer, that playful smile returning. Well, there's one more surprise I have for you, but I want it to be a little more special. Just give me a few minutes. I watched as he stood up and walked to the other room. I could hear him rummaging through something, the rustling sounds filling the silence. My heart raced with anticipation. What could it be? A part of me was nervous, hoping it would be something that would further solidify our bond. After a few moments, he returned, holding something behind his back. Okay, close your eyes, he instructed, and I complied, trusting him completely. Okay, open them. As I opened my eyes, I was greeted with a small velvet box resting in his palm. My heart skipped a beat. What is this? I whispered, barely able to contain my excitement. Just open it and see, he said, his expression softening. I carefully lifted the lid, revealing a delicate silver bracelet adorned with tiny charms, each representing a significant moment in our relationship. There was a coffee cup, a book, and even a tiny heart. Oh my gosh, Liam, this is beautiful! I can't believe you made this for me. I wanted you to have something that symbolizes our journey together, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. And I wanted you to know that I'm all in, no matter what anyone else says or thinks. Tears welled in my eyes as I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist. It felt like more than just a piece of jewelry. It felt like a promise that we were building something real and lasting. Thank you, I said, my voice shaky with emotion. This means so much to me. We spent the rest of the evening talking about our dreams for the future, weaving plans together like the charms on my bracelet. It felt liberating to share my aspirations without fear of judgment. For the first time, I felt like the future was not just a distant idea, but a tangible reality, something I could reach out and grasp. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the warmth that enveloped me. The laughter, the surprises, the genuine moments we shared. The weight of Rachel's words felt lighter, almost insignificant against the backdrop of what I was now building with Liam. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, fortified by love and the promise of a beautiful future. The next morning, sunlight poured through my window, casting a golden hue across the room. I stretched and took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness as I remembered the day ahead. It was going to be a day of planning, of setting the stage for our new life together. Liam had suggested we take a weekend trip to explore some potential venues for our wedding. It felt surreal to think about it. Wedding planning, our future, a life shared together. After a quick breakfast, I dressed in comfortable clothes, ready for a day filled with possibilities. As I glanced at myself in the mirror, I felt a burst of hope. The bracelet Liam had given me shimmered on my wrist, a constant reminder of the commitment we were making. I picked up my phone and sent a quick text to Liam, letting him know I was ready when he was. He responded almost immediately. Can't wait! Meet you at the cafe! I made my way to our favorite coffee shop, excitement bubbling inside me. Walking through the doors, I spotted him sitting at a corner table, a steaming cup of coffee in front of him. He looked up and smiled, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Hey, ready to embark on this wedding adventure? He asked, gesturing for me to join him. I slid into the seat across from him and grinned. Absolutely, let's do this. We spent the next hour discussing ideas, browsing through wedding magazines, and laughing over the ridiculous expectations that sometimes came with planning a wedding. I talked about wanting something simple but beautiful, focusing on the love we shared rather than the extravagance of the event itself. Liam nodded along, his enthusiasm palpable. "Let's make it about us, our love story," he said, and I felt my heart flutter at the thought. After finishing our coffees, we decided to head to a few venues that I had researched. The first place was a charming little garden that felt like a hidden oasis. As we walked through the blooming flowers, I could almost picture our guests gathered around, celebrating our love. "This place is magical," I said, turning to Liam. He smiled, his eyes sparkling as he took in the surroundings. "I can see it now. You in a beautiful dress, surrounded by all the people who love us." We explored several other venues, each one more beautiful than the last. But as the day wore on, I couldn't shake a sense of unease. The laughter and joy of the morning were slowly being overshadowed by Rachel's comment from the wedding. "He'll leave you in a month." I tried to push it aside, reminding myself of the bond Liam and I were building, yet the doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. "Is everything okay?" Liam asked, noticing my change in demeanor. I took a deep breath, deciding that honesty was the best path forward. "I'm just thinking about what Rachel said during the vows. I know I shouldn't let it get to me, but..." He reached for my hand, intertwining his fingers with mine. "You don't have to worry about that. What matters is what we have, what we're building together. I'm here for the long haul. You know that, right?" I nodded, but the doubt lingered. "I know, but it's hard not to let those words echo in my mind." "Let's make a pact," he said, squeezing my hand gently. "No more dwelling on the past or what others think. We're starting our own story, and I want it to be filled with love and happiness." His words washed over me like a soothing balm. I felt the weight of my worries lift, if only for a moment. We spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the city, laughing and taking silly photos. That evening, after a long day, we returned to my apartment, both exhausted but exhilarated. As I flopped onto the couch, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. I felt a sense of peace settle in me, a reassurance that despite the noise from the outside world, what mattered was our connection. Just as I was about to drift off into thoughts of our future, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. My heart raced as I opened it, half expecting more negativity. "Hey, I was just thinking about you. Want to grab lunch tomorrow?" I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Should I confront her about her earlier comment? Or should I brush it off and keep the peace? Liam walked into the room, sensing my hesitation. "What's up?" "It's Rachel. She wants to meet for lunch," I said, showing him the message. He raised an eyebrow. "What do you think? Do you want to meet her?" I sighed, torn between wanting to address the elephant in the room and wanting to avoid confrontation. "I don't know. Part of me wants to talk to her about what she said, but another part just wants to move forward." Liam leaned against the wall, his expression thoughtful. "If it's bothering you, it's worth addressing, but only if you feel ready." I appreciated his support. "Maybe I'll just see how the lunch goes. If the topic comes up, I can decide then." "Sounds good," he said, smiling. "Whatever you choose, I'm here for you." As I prepared for bed that night, I couldn't help but feel a mix of apprehension and determination. I was ready to face whatever came next, whether it was Rachel or the uncertainties of our future. With Liam by my side, I knew I could navigate the challenges ahead, and I felt a flicker of hope reignite within me. The next day, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. The sun streamed through the window, casting warm patterns on the floor, but I could barely appreciate it. Today was the day I would sit down with Rachel. I threw on a simple dress and tied my hair back in a loose bun, my mind racing with thoughts of what I wanted to say. Part of me was excited. I'd always been a peacemaker, wanting to mend fences and smooth over rough patches. But another part was uneasy, almost fearful of what Rachel might say, or how she might react. Liam had left for work, leaving me to gather my thoughts. I brewed a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the kitchen, but it did little to calm my nerves. I found myself pacing the small space, replaying Rachel's words over and over in my mind. "He'll leave you in a month." The chilling echo of her laughter haunted me. What could have prompted her to say something so hurtful? When the time came for our lunch meeting, I arrived at the cafe early, choosing a small table by the window. I ordered a light salad, trying to keep my mind off the impending conversation. The cafe buzzed with the chatter of patrons and the clinking of silverware, but it all felt distant, like I was in a bubble. I stared out the window, lost in my thoughts, when I noticed Rachel walking toward me. She looked as polished as ever, her hair falling perfectly around her shoulders, a confident smile plastered on her face. I stood to greet her, forcing a smile, my heart racing. "Hey, Rachel," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Hey, sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare," she replied, sliding into the chair across from me. I nodded, unsure of how to start. "No worries. I'm just glad we could meet." She chatted about her recent trip and the new restaurant she wanted to try, but I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. I took a deep breath, deciding it was now or never. "So, about what you said at my wedding." Her smile faltered for a second before she quickly recovered. "Oh, that. I thought we could just move past it. It was a joke, right?" "A joke?" I echoed, incredulous. "Rachel, it didn't come off that way at all. It really hurt me." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms defensively. "I didn't mean it like that. I just thought it was funny. Everyone knows relationships can be tough, especially in the first few months." I felt my frustration bubbling. "But why would you say that on my wedding day? It was supposed to be a celebration. Look, I'm sorry if it upset you. It was a moment of spontaneity. You know I care about you, right?" I stared at her, trying to gauge her sincerity. Caring about me would mean not making jokes at my expense, especially when I'm committing my life to someone. Rachel sighed, her expression softening just a bit. "I get it. You're right. I just thought—" "You thought what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "That it was a good time to sow doubt? To hurt me?" She looked taken aback. "No, that's not what I meant. Rachel, I want to move forward in my life. I want to be happy. I'm trying to build a future with Liam, and I need my sister to support that, not undermine it." Silence settled between us, thick and heavy. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, and for a moment I thought we might actually get somewhere. But then she shrugged, her defenses building back up. "I just want you to be realistic. Relationships are hard, and I've seen you struggle before." "I know that," I said, my voice softer now. "But I also know that I'm in a different place now. With Liam, I feel secure and loved. Can't you just be happy for me?" Rachel looked away, her eyes scanning the cafe. "I guess I'm just worried about you. I've always been the protective one. Protective doesn't mean being hurtful. I need you to believe in this with me, not to doubt it." She took a sip of her iced tea, her gaze thoughtful. "Okay, I'll try. But it's hard for me to see you so vulnerable." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "I appreciate that. I just want to feel supported, you know?" The conversation shifted as we talked about lighter topics. And while I could sense that we hadn't completely resolved our issues, I felt a little more at ease. I wanted Rachel to understand that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet and that I'd appreciate her support without judgment. As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I didn't know if Rachel would fully come around, but I had taken the first step. I had voiced my concerns and stood up for myself, and that felt empowering. When I returned home, Liam was waiting for me, his smile brightening the room. "How did it go?" I sighed, leaning into him. "It was tough, but I think we made some progress." He held me close, and I felt his warmth surround me. "I'm proud of you for speaking up. That takes courage." "Thanks. It felt good to finally address it," I said. As we settled into our evening routine, I realized that facing Rachel had been a pivotal moment. I was learning to stand up for myself, and I could feel the strength growing within me. With Liam by my side, I was ready to tackle whatever life threw our way. But little did I know, there were still twists ahead that would test both our love and my resolve. The next few days passed in a blur of activity as I prepared for the wedding. Every detail seemed to matter more than I anticipated. The flowers had to be perfect, the seating arrangements flawless, and the cake. Oh, the cake. It felt like I was juggling a million tasks at once, and I couldn't help but feel that old anxiety creeping back in. But this time, I was determined to face it head-on. I wasn't going to let my insecurities overshadow what should be one of the happiest moments of my life. I immersed myself in planning, finding comfort in the process. Liam was incredibly supportive, attending meetings with vendors, helping me choose invitations, and constantly reminding me to breathe through the chaos. It was in these moments that I really started to appreciate how far we had come together. I wasn't just marrying a man. I was choosing a partner. Someone who would stand by me and share in all the ups and downs of life. As the days dwindled down to the wedding, I felt a sense of unease begin to settle in. I had spent so long focusing on the logistics and the glamour of the day that I hadn't taken the time to truly consider what it meant for me emotionally. I was about to make a vow to love and cherish someone, to promise my life to him. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Then, a few nights before the wedding, I had a conversation with my mother that left me unsettled. We were sitting on the porch, the summer breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. I looked at her, a mix of confusion and frustration flooding over me. "Mom, we've been over this. I love Liam. He's good to me. Love isn't always enough, honey. I just want you to be sure." Her words echoed in my mind long after our talk ended. Was I sure? I had always believed that love could conquer all. But what if it wasn't that simple? What if my mother was right? The day before the wedding, I found myself sitting in front of the mirror, tears streaming down my face as I questioned everything. What if I'm making a huge mistake? I whispered to myself, feeling the weight of doubt pressing down. My heart raced as I imagined the moment I'd stand in front of everyone, saying words that would bind me to another person for eternity. Liam found me like that, and without hesitation, he knelt beside me. "Hey, what's going on?" I sniffled, wiping my tears. I don't know if I'm ready for this. What if I'm not the person you think I am? "Just look at me," he said, his eyes steady and reassuring. "You are everything I could ever want. You don't have to be perfect to be my partner. I love you for who you are, flaws and all." His words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, but the fear still lingered. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that our love was enough to withstand the pressures of life. The wedding day arrived, and I woke up to the sound of my friends buzzing around the house. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and excitement. I tried to channel that energy, but as I slipped into my dress, the weight of my doubts came crashing back. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, what if today turns into a disaster? As I walked down the aisle, I felt the eyes of our family and friends on me, their smiles full of joy, but my heart pounded with uncertainty. There, at the end, stood Liam, his expression a mix of love and eagerness. I took a deep breath, reminding myself why I was there. I loved him. I wanted this. The ceremony began, and every word spoken felt monumental. The vows were a blur, but as I looked into Liam's eyes, everything around us faded. I felt grounded, connected to something larger than myself. This was it. This was my moment. And then, just as I was about to say my vows, a figure appeared at the back of the crowd. My heart dropped as I recognized him instantly. My ex, Kyle, with a microphone in hand. It was as if time stood still. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears as whispers rippled through the guests. What is he doing here? I thought, panic rising in my chest. Before I knew it, Kyle was striding down the aisle, his voice booming through the mic. "Everyone, I have something to say." The room fell silent and I felt a rush of adrenaline. My mind raced. Was this really happening? I glanced at Liam, whose face reflected shock and confusion. My sister Rachel was wide-eyed and I could see her hand clutching her dress as if bracing for impact. Kyle cleared his throat, smirking as if he were about to deliver the punchline to a bad joke. "I know you all think this is a fairy tale, but I just want to remind everyone that sometimes things aren't what they seem. Remember, she's always been a little dramatic." Gasps erupted around us, and I felt my stomach drop. My heart raced and I could feel tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. How could he do this? How could he disrupt what should have been one of the happiest moments of my life? Liam stepped forward, his expression darkening. "This is not your moment, Kyle. You need to leave." "I'm just saying she'll leave you in a month," Kyle retorted, his voice dripping with arrogance. In that instant, something within me snapped. I was no longer that insecure girl who let her ex's words define her. I had worked too hard to get to this moment, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me, especially not Kyle. I took a deep breath, my voice steady and clear. "You don't get to decide my future, Kyle. You lost that right when you walked out of my life," the crowd murmured, and I could see Kyle's face shift from smugness to surprise. "I'm marrying Liam because I love him, not because I'm running away from my past. I'm proud of the person I've become, and I won't let anyone, especially you, tarnish this day for me." With that, I turned back to Liam, locking eyes with him, my heart racing. In that moment, I knew that our love was stronger than any past doubt or insecurity. Kyle stood there, speechless, as I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had taken a stand, and it felt liberating. Standing there, the weight of my words hung in the air like a fragile glass sculpture. Beautiful, yet precarious. I could see the surprise in Kyle's eyes, and for a moment, I reveled in it. The crowd's murmurs faded into a dull roar as I focused on Liam, his warm gaze grounding me. This was our day, and I refused to let anyone steal that joy from us. As I took Liam's hand, a sense of calm washed over me. The tension in my shoulders eased, and I could almost hear the whispers of encouragement from my friends and family surrounding us. I was no longer that girl who let fear dictate her choices. I had stood up for myself, not just in front of Kyle, but in front of everyone who had ever doubted me. "Are you okay?" Liam asked softly, concern etched across his features. "More than okay," I replied, squeezing his hand. "I'm ready." And as we turned to face our loved ones, I felt a surge of love and support enveloping us. The vows we would exchange were not just words. They were promises of a future built on trust and unwavering commitment. The ceremony resumed, and as we stood before the officiant, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us to this moment. From the heartache of my past to the exhilaration of finding love again, every twist and turn had shaped me into the woman I was today. I thought of the nights spent crying over what could have been, of the countless times I questioned my worth. But here I was, standing strong beside the man who saw me for who I truly was. When it was time to exchange vows, my heart raced. I had written mine in the quiet moments of reflection, and as I spoke the words I had rehearsed countless times, they felt more real than ever. "Liam, you are my best friend and my greatest adventure. With you, I feel safe, cherished, and loved. I promise to stand by you in all of life's storms and to celebrate with you in all our joys." I could see tears in Liam's eyes, and in that instant, I knew I had found my home. He took a deep breath, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "From the moment we met, I knew you were the one. You've brought light into my life, and I promise to love you fiercely and completely for all the days of my life." As we exchanged rings, the world around us faded away. It was as if time had paused and all that existed was our love, the kind that filled every crack in the foundation of my heart, that made me feel whole again. With the officiant's final words, we were pronounced husband and wife. The crowd erupted into applause, and I felt a rush of warmth as Liam pulled me into his arms, sealing our vows with a kiss that tasted of salt and sweet promises. In that moment, I felt invincible. I had faced my past, stood my ground, and emerged victorious. Kyle's words no longer held power over me. They were just echoes of a life I had left behind. As we walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, I couldn't help but smile. But then, as we reached the end, I turned back to look at Kyle one last time. He stood there looking lost and defeated, and while a part of me wanted to bask in that victory, another part of me felt compassion. We had shared a chapter of my life, and while it wasn't a happy ending, it had taught me invaluable lessons about love and self-worth. "Thank you for the lesson," I whispered, though I knew he couldn't hear me. I was grateful for the strength I had found in myself. As we stepped into the sunlight, the world seemed brighter, the colors more vivid. Laughter erupted from our friends as they showered us with flower petals, and I couldn't help but join in, feeling the joy radiate around us. Later, as we stood among our friends during the reception, I took a moment to reflect. So much had changed in such a short time. I had fought for my happiness and found it in a way I never expected. Liam pulled me close, whispering sweet nothings that filled my heart with warmth. "Can you believe it? We did it," he said, his smile infectious. "I can," I replied, leaning into him. "I always knew we would. It just took me a while to find my way." As the night wore on, I realized how much I had grown, how far I had come. I had faced my fears, confronted my past, and emerged stronger. But I also knew this was just the beginning. So I ask you, my friends, what have you learned from your own struggles? How has your past shaped who you are today? Please share your stories in the comments below. With every laugh, every dance, and every toast, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be, and that the love we shared would carry us through any storm. Today was a celebration of not just our love, but of resilience, growth, and the beauty of new beginnings. As the stars twinkled above us, I couldn't help but feel hopeful for what the future would bring. Together, we would face it all, hand in hand, ready for the adventures that lay ahead.